charges of extremism, terrorism, and the organized crime in May. The published list comes with the photos of the arrested men between 24 and 53 years of age, with bruises and swellings on their faces and their brief biographies. Among the arrested are people of different backgrounds. For example, local religious leader, former staff of security agency, local sportsmen and trainers of judo, security guard at a local hospital, teacher of a local school, gardener, accountant, individual entrepreneurs, chief architect of Russian district, students, who were all labeled as terrorists. Among the arrested residents, whose names were officially published as members of organized criminal extremist terrorist group, only 3 persons have had former convictions. These tactics of confession under torture, using national television as propaganda, and labeling civilians terrorists are not new tactics. What is new is the using of full government apparatus against a single group of civilians. Presently, harassment, arbitrary detentions, and torture in light of privacy, wide-ranging forms of surveillance is continuing in Gibao. Since January 22, 13 natives of Gibao disappeared in Russian Federation or were detained by Russian police, later ending up under the custody in Tajikistan for serious charges. This includes citizens of Russian Federation who no longer have Tajik citizenship. Those arrested and detained have minimal to zero access to lawyers, and their relatives cannot see them. Other outspoken and active members of Gibao diaspora have been threatened. Their relatives have been summoned for interrogation in Tajikistan. Therefore, I'm not able to speak to you personally today, although physically I'm not in Tajikistan anymore. Already this can tell you a lot about the scale and spectrum of domestic and transitional repressions that Gibao Pamiri natives have been experiencing. I will still come back to the statement at the end of our meeting, but now I would like to give voice to Susana Levy Sanchez, who is with us online. She's a professor, expert, and author of numerous publications and an expert of the region. Susana, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you for having me today. Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be here, and I'm grateful that the anonymous author of the recent, what Anna just shared with you, was shared with the audience, because those of us in the international community who are speaking on behalf of the Pamiris are often not Pamiris because it's not safe for them to speak. And that's the reason I'm here today. So I'm going to read a short talk and bring up a few questions. So recently the Tajik government cracked down on the Pamiri Ismailis, as you know, in Tajikistan. While this wasn't the first, it's certainly the most violent and comprehensive. Attempts by the Tajik government to gain full control of the legally designated semi-autonomous region of Gorno-Badakhshan has occurred in 2012, 2014, 2018, and finally in this last, recent crackdown of 2021 to 22, which is their most successful in the negative way. This last crackdown managed to destroy the vibrant civil society that had been quietly functioning in Gorno-Badakhshan since the fall of the Soviet Union. They did this by methodically stripping the Pamiris of their key civil society leaders, journalists, informal leaders, Wahala leaders, as well as access to the economy and participation in the economy and civil society. In recent months, the Tajik government has not only cracked down on the population of Pamiri Ismailis living in the province of Gorno-Badakhshan, it has also waged a program of total submission of the population through surveillance, seizure of business sites, nationalizing parts of the economy, forced relocation of people, arrest of hundreds of leaders and key members within the civil society, assassination of local leaders, torture and imprisonment without judicial process, and killings of groups of people resulting in close to deadly deaths and likely more, as was recently stated. There have also been transnational renditions of civil society members, including artists, poets, musicians, activists, bloggers, and respected members of civil society. Many Pamirs have had to flee Russia to avoid being renditioned back to Tajikistan, where they would be interrogated, imprisoned, and most likely tortured, or their other choice is to be conscripted into the Russian army and sent to the front lines in Ukraine as fodder, cannon fodder in this war. It is likely that this crackdown by the Tajik government, while years in the planning, was more urgent at this time due to the passing of the leadership from President Imam Ali Rahmon to his son Rustam Paymon Ali. It was also important for the Tajik government to gain control of the region from their perspective in order to control the traffic and trade along the Pamir highway, which runs through the area. Also, by limiting Western presence and influence in the region, it was serving both Russia and China, which are rising in both economic and security importance as the Western countries have withdrawn from the region. There was also fear of instability by both Russia and China due to the new Taliban takeover in Afghanistan, so there was more pressure for the Tajik government to take control of the region. At the same time as Russian and Chinese influence in the region has increased, the government of Tajikistan started to shut down various Ismaili institutions and development programs of the Aga Development Network. The shutdown of these programs is a major blow to the Pamiris in that AKDN and the network of institutions are major employees in the region as well as suppliers of humanitarian aid. In the past, the Ismaili institutions and leaders have played a major role as mediator of these various conflicts between the Tajik state and civil society of the Pamir. But in this last conflict, there was less involvement by Akkadian leaders and Ismaili imamat. It is unclear why this occurred, but some speculate that there was a lack of proper information being sent to the imamat, which obscured the actual human rights violations of the Tajik government. This, coupled with the decreased presence of Western countries and institutions, allowed for the Tajik government, with the support of Chinese surveillance equipment, Russian security, to wage a crackdown and finally achieve their objectives that they had started to attempt in 2012. At the moment, there are still ongoing arrests, torture, false imprisonment of hundreds of Pamiris, and attempted transnational renditions, as well as economic oppression going on in Gorno. There are two important questions that come to mind. First, what can be done to prevent these atrocities, stop them from continuing now? And second, what role can the international community play in addressing the crimes against humanity now and bring justice to the region? So first, what could have possibly prevented this? Well, if the international community had been more active and involved from the beginning of the crackdown and the first killing of Kulbegi Ziovekov in November of 2021, this most likely, hard to say in hindsight, could have helped us shine a light on the situation much earlier and allow for processes of mediation and engagement by the international community to occur. Second, because the communication between AKDN and the Ismaili imamat was not as direct as in the past, the mediation of AKDN was inhibited. Direct communication needed to occur in order to enhance the usual forms of mediation in the region. And lastly, even though the Western countries are less present in the region, there still needs to be, if as much as possible, more involvement, particularly when it comes to human rights violations and atrocities. So second, what role can the international community play to bring justice to the region and justice against these for these human rights violations? In my opinion, the international community should study all the documented evidence that has been produced by various actors, including the Pamiri diaspora and individuals within the Pamiri community who have remained anonymous, the human rights organizations, and study the rooftop report that has been created very, very carefully because it documents every one of the killings, every one of the violations, the torture, the ongoing repression, the economic terrorism, and all the other violations going on. And after studying that, it is important then to begin methodically bringing charges to those individuals who engaged in crimes against humanity. So I think what I've said is fairly brave today, and I urge the international community to begin a methodical process of engaging and investigating what is going on, working to provide some form of mediation to decrease the continued repression, oppression, and violence against humanity in the region, as well as bring those to justice who need to be. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being with us. Now I would like to give voice to Hussein Ashurov from Political Movement 24. He is not here. Okay. Then we will jump to the next speaker on my list. Please, can I ask you to try to take not very much time, just that we have a chance to discuss it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anna. I try to be very short. Maybe some words I will translate myself in Russian.
I guess most people here will understand.
Yeah, okay. Talking about production, about families in Tajikistan, let us engage in the moment this situation when what happened in Badakhshan last year would take place in any other OSCE member countries, in an abstract countries, and what would be international reaction on this? USA, Europe, or in other countries. When the government killed more than 40 peaceful protesters and more than 100 activists, journalists, bloggers, advocates now in prison, and a lot of activists in Russia will be deported to Tajikistan. And I am sure that the reaction would be very strong. The people, diplomats in different capitals talk about sanctions against the government, but not in Tajikistan. Why? Because our situation in Tajikistan, not only Pamiri situation, but situation in Badakhshan, I'm talking about Tajikistan. We are victims of situation in Afghanistan. A lot of people in Europe, in America, everywhere consider Tajikistan only as neighbors of Afghanistan, and compare situation between Afghanistan and Tajikistan, government in Kabul and Dushanbe. So I think it is time now to consider Tajikistan as member of OSCE, Eurasian region, and independent country, not only through perspective of Afghan situation. Well, I understand that in this context, the international community needs Tajikistan or Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan as transit countries to Afghanistan, but let us also think about people in Tajikistan, in Kazakhstan, everywhere in our region. So it is time to take serious steps like sanctions We are talking here with different diplomats about Magnitsky list, about different sanctions against Tajik government, because without this serious steps, Tajik government will not change their behaviors. Even today, when we are talking about these violations, blogger Abdullah today was sent to prison for 8 years. Tajik government, it is a very strong message to international community, to OSCE, to us. This message says that we are not afraid, nobody, because we have in our side Russia, China, and you can talk in OSCE, in Warsaw, in Brussels, what you want, but we are doing our job here in Tajikistan. So I think that it should be taken seriously, and now it is time to take serious steps. Let me somewhat in Russian. Я только что сказал о том, что наша ситуация в Таджикистане, в частности в Бадахшане, стала жертвой ситуации в Афганистане. Международное сообщество, западные государства, они смотрят на Таджикистан через призму событий в Афганистане. Они рассматривают нас как соседи Афганистана, сравнивают нас с Афганистаном, сравнивают правительство в Кабуле с правительством Таджикистана. И они считают, что все-таки ситуация в Таджикистане не так ужасна, как в Афганистане. Я призываю, я думаю, что я об этом говорил, что пора уже рассматривать Таджикистан как независимое государство, как член ОБСЕ, как член международного сообщества. Не обязательно все время сравнивать с Афганистаном и только через призму афганских событий оценивать ситуацию в Таджикистане. Случилось ли такая же, вот то, что случилось на Памире, в любой другой стране в Евразийском регионе реакция, международная реакция была не другая, совершенно другая. Но почему все молчат? Потому что они думают, что у вас Таджикистан, то мы должны быть очень осторожны, потому что есть необходимость сотрудничества, не надо разозлить таджикских коллег, как сегодня было сказано, когда встречаются министры иностранных дел с коллегами из Таджикистана, они ни разу не поднимают события в Бадахшане. Может быть, они поднимают, но оно остается за кадром, не для прессы. А это, как обычно, не действует на таджикских властей. Вот об этом я сказал пару слов на английском. Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. I would like now to give voice to our next online speaker, Professor Steve Swertov, human rights lawyer, also expert on the region. Steve, do you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Great. Now, I may share some slides. Is that possible?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Is it possible for me to share slides?
Is it possible to share slides? But he can do it from his end, right? 1 second.
If you could enable to make me a co-host or something, that would help me share it.
Trying to work on it. I think you can do it.
All right, let's try. Can you see this?
Yes.
All right.
It's still black, but we can see it. Yes, we can see it.
All right, okay. Well, I want to thank the organizers and everyone who has spoken, Deans, and yourself, Hannah, and Suzanne, of course, has already laid out expertly this horrific crackdown, which, as she has said, and other experts, Bruce Pamiri and many others, those of us that have been trying our best to highlight this crackdown, is really unprecedented in its nature in an already unprecedented human rights crisis, which has proceeded apace since the estimates can vary, but certainly the experts in this room know from their personal experience that the crackdown on Tajikistan civil society, its peaceful political opposition, which has included a whole wide spectrum of human rights abuses, has continued at least since 2014, if not since the events in Gurno-Bakshan a decade ago. And as our last speaker just ended by saying that the lack of action has led to an environment of impunity which has allowed the human rights abuses in Tajikistan only to grow worse. And so I think these gatherings are incredibly important. I'm so glad that there are members from various delegations in the room. What I will try to do maybe is add a little bit to what the speakers have said by bringing in some legal definitions and seeing if they apply to this situation, and also maybe touching on some of the other policy recommendations, which the factual background has already been provided. But important to note, maybe just a few other facts, that I think the latest estimates that I heard as of yesterday, so we're speaking about most likely, and Alim, who's in the room, can correct me if I'm wrong, over 200 political prisoners since May, just related to the Rushon or the Bakshan crisis. As you said, Anna, 13 Pamiris disappeared, forcibly returned from the Russian Federation, or kidnapped. 13 cases of transnational repression this year, 68 killed. Today's verdict of Abdullah Gulbarti, who's not related directly to the Pamiri crisis, but is a Tajik journalist. And then the recent life sentence given to retired General Hobash Gulbashov, sentenced to life imprisonment for without evidence related to an alleged role in organizing these deadly protests. And then I should also just say, given that he's here, I think it's very courageous, Alim Shirkamur, that you are doing so much great activism. You have suffered also very personally by being called some ringleader of this, which is absurd. And I just want to say right here, right now, in front of everyone, and I don't know if there are any Tajik government representatives, that Alim Shirkamur is not a terrorist. He is a human rights activist, and he should be supported. And we all support you, and we applaud your courage. So I think that I should say that, experts like Suzanne have done, thank you Suzanne for the thumbs up. We're thinking now about whether or not this unprecedented attack on the Pamiri language, the culture, the ethnic identity, would constitute a crime against humanity or genocide. These are terms that unfortunately we're becoming much more familiar with in the context of Ukraine once again. But why not, as Kabir, as Muhyiddin has just said, it's important that we attach the proper weight and significance to this crackdown that it deserves. And it's important to just simply know these are two separate crimes. Both are used to describe the killing of a large number of people. And the terms of the crimes really differ in terms of the intent that one must prove. And the distinction is really about that intent. In genocide, the focus is placed on the destruction of a group, and we'll talk about what constitutes that definition. In crimes against humanity, the focus is placed on the killing of individuals. Is the killing of individuals widespread and systematic? And I think here it is. We're talking about not thousands, but we're talking about a representative number of the group, which is important enough. Cultural leaders, lawyers, actors, politicians, producers of culture, which I think goes to this idea that the intent of the government may be to destroy the identity of Pamiris. Certainly that's something that maybe Pamiris will tell you, and that's one of the reasons why Pamiris can't speak at these events the way we can. So both of these crimes, they go back to the Nuremberg trials of 1945. We're thinking a lot about those these days, again, in light of what's happening in Ukraine. But they've been recodified in 1998 in the Rome Statute, along with war crimes and aggression. And just to quickly mention what are some of the things that make up crimes against humanity. Again, this is a systematic attack, widespread attack on the civilian population, which could include acts such as murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, or forcible transfer of the population, imprisonment or severe deprivation of physical liberty, and of course, I think here, which is really important for Tajikistan, torture. We've already been able to prove and show in so many cases systematic torture happening in Tajikistan prisons, and I think this is very, very important. Also, other things related to sexual slavery and forced disappearances, which are happening on a systematic basis with the help of the Russian Federation. That's also a predicate, I should say, basis for a crime against humanity. So we should really seriously consider looking at this as something that constitutes a crime against humanity. I'll go through very quickly because I don't want to speak very long, but just to also mention the genocide definition. Genocide, of course, comes from the definition in the convention, coined in 1946 after the Holocaust, which is a little bit different and harder to prove than a crime against humanity. What it requires is showing a specific intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, religious group as such. Now, is that happening here? Do the Pamiris constitute a national, ethnic, racial, religious group as such? Absolutely. Do you need to show that all the Pamiri culture and people and everything has been targeted for extermination? No. You can show that by going after a specifically important segment of the population, that you're trying to decapitate the identity of this group. That is enough from the perspective of genocide. What is difficult to show, though, is the specific intent. And I think that's something that experts like Dan and others are working on and evaluating. The specific intent is always very difficult. So just to finish up and not take too much of your time, in addition to looking at the International Criminal Court, looking at whether or not there can be investigations in the International Criminal Court and accountability for those two crimes, I think we should think about, and I know that over these next 2 weeks there are going to be a lot of conversations, I hope, about targeted sanctions against those that are responsible for systematic policies and practices of abuses. One of these individuals who should absolutely be placed on a targeted sanctions list would be Saeed Yatimov. His name also came up very notoriously just last week in terms of the conflict that erupted between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, that he is the head of the security services. He's been implicated in this wide-running crackdown on human rights, not just in the Pamirs, but all over Tajikistan since at least 9 or 10 years now. And he is an important figure. I think he really should be considered and seriously looked at. I also wanted to mention that instead of a Magnitsky list, let's start talking about Tajikistan in its own terms. Maybe we should have an Ulfat Onin list. Ulfat Onin is the name of a journalist from a Pamiri journalist who's been detained since May, along with her husband, Ulbasha, who suffered greatly, and I think we should really start thinking and identifying things in terms of the Pamirs. We're at the OSCE. I wish I was there with you. We have the Moscow mechanism. This is an important mechanism that we've considered using. It's been invoked in Belarus in 2020, and certainly now in Russia in 2022. It would allow us to have an ad hoc commission of experts, commission of inquiry, that would investigate the systematic pattern of human rights violations in Tajikistan. I think it's very relevant. Let's recall, we also have a European Parliament resolution from a few months ago calling for access, unimpeded access for human rights organizations and lawyers. As has been stated, the legal profession had the legs cut out from under it. No one there to represent the people in prison. That's very, very important. So the European Parliament has already noted the need for action. And finally, let me end with my favorite, because I think some of the members of the fabulous U.S. delegation are in the room. U.S. foreign policy on this issue has really been, I think, lacking in terms of its lack of publicity. We need to see more public statements decrying what's happening on the embassy's website and in the, I think, the business to reaching a high-level advocacy. I'd really like to see the language that we hear appropriately reflect the severity and the scope of this human rights crackdown. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Steve, very much. Thank you for this sentence about numbers, that even if the numbers might be not huge, they are enough, and they are much more than enough to stop pretending that nothing is happening. And I can still add to that from a minority rights group perspective about the need of more visibility and publicity. First of all, after our visit to the region this year, basically all the people, all the leaders, journalists, bloggers, civil society representatives, lawyers, all the people we talked with, they are all arrested. We cannot talk with them anymore. Second thing is the visibility in media. Normally I work a lot with journalists covering human rights stories in the world. And what editors are saying now, well, we cannot verify information because our journalists cannot go there. Well, they cannot get journalistic visa, obviously. And with the blockade of internet, with the difficulties with communication, with difficulties of bringing out pictures, videos from there, it's just super difficult to cover stories. We are now working on the map that Suzanne mentioned, the rooftop organization will publish next week a map. We've done it together with Bellingcat representatives. I hope that all of you will be able to read it, to check it, because we have to talk more about it. And when I asked the anonymous representative that I was quoting at the beginning about what next, what now, he still asked me to read one paragraph. So before I will give voice to some final comments and hopefully some discussion, I will still read this little part. So will there be more serious conditionality attached to foreign assistance to Tajikistan from now on based on human rights commitments? Will the assistance to the security sector in Tajikistan be impartially reviewed and rearranged so it is not contributing to human rights violation in the country? Will there be a firm call for independent human rights monitoring and investigation of violation in Tajikistan and Gibao? Will the foreign embassies and organizations in Tajikistan request monitoring of trials of civil society members of Gibao natives? Or will the international community continue business as usual, funding the government without any accountability, upholding a criminal regime, and lending and hand to the oppressions of Tajikistan fighting for democracy? Would you like to have some comments still? Right now? No. Then let's open the floor. And
yeah, I want to say something.
Okay.
My name is Hussein. I'm Deputy to Head of Political Movement, Group 24. And first of all, I would like to say about the situation which is going right now in my country. It's not the first time, and on behalf of the Group 24, I would like to sympathize my feeling to the people of Gorno-Badakhshan. And since 2016, we are participating in the international conference here in Warsaw and talking about the situation and the problems which is going and cracking down on human rights in my country. So my question is to all the international community and the delegation and representative from different community. My question is, how long we are going to participate in the international conferences which is holding according to the human rights, and we are going to write a history and just note it, how long, when we are going to take a real and serious action against this kind of regime. They are cooperating with each other. Putin, Imam Ali Rahmanov, even all those ex-Soviet Union countries, they are cooperating, and all the community and all the international organizations already know about it. So when we are going to take a serious action to end this all scenery and spectacle? So kindly a request from all the international community and all the international organizations and all the delegation of USA and Germany sitting here. So please give serious attention to the situation which is going right now in my country, not only in Badakhshan. Badakhshan is a catastrophe, killing totally everyone. And right till now, they are following the oppositions and the young generation, not only inside the country, they already start in Russia. How many oppositions and young people extradite from Russia to Tajikistan? They are cooperating with each other. So we have to start to take a real and serious action to end this scenario. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your voice. Susan, Steve, online world, would you like still to make some comment?
I'll just make a quick comment, if I may. You know, I appreciated what everybody in the room has been saying, but in particular, what Steve wrote about. I've been trying to bring light to the issue of potential genocide and crimes against humanity in the region. I'm not an expert in that area by any means. I've not ever spent a lot of time on the border. But I do think that investigating in a methodical way the crimes against humanity and the potential for genocide, these are very strong definitions and strong statements. But I think that not only what's going on in Gorno-Badakhshan, but what is going on and has been going on for almost 2 decades across Tajikistan against the civil society, the killing of leaders in other communities and arrests. At this point warrants a much deeper look, and I do think sanctions against specific people, like Yakima. The diaspora, the Pamiri diaspora has done an outstanding job documenting and naming publicly the different players who have been involved in the torture and the killing and the atrocities. And so therefore, I just hope that more light gets shed on this. I do think Ukraine also has been an ongoing human rights atrocity as well, and I know it seems to be clouding the light that needs to be shining on this Pamiri situation, but it doesn't make the Pamiri situation any less awful. And also the situation in Tajikistan as a whole. Lastly, I'm just going to say that the recent Russian requirement of conscription of any Central Asian of having citizenship up to 10 years prior has made the pressure on both the Tajik and the overall Central Asian diaspora in Russia extreme, and so they're fleeing the country, and there's another massive atrocity going on against the community there. So anyway, I'm grateful for this happening, and I mean, you have all my respect for everything you're doing and you've done, just like you said. Thank you. Apologize for talking too much. Thanks.
Thank you. I see. I will do myself.
Меня зовут Тимур Клюшек-Плаки, я сопредседатель Томского комитета и член правления Национального альянса Татарстана. Крыша мира в крови. Памир — это крыша мира. Крыша мира в крови. И это мировая проблема. Памир — это стержень или атом, вокруг которого был создан Таджикистан. Без Памира Таджикистана не существует, не может существовать. Но Памир — это драгоценность, это культурная, лингвистическая драгоценность, которая досталась ненадлежащему хранителю. Рахмун не выполняет функцию хранителя, он выполняет функцию варвара по отношению к драгоценности, которая ему досталась случайно в воле суде, по воле российского руководства ГРУ. Навязано таджикскому народу. И сегодня Рахмон пытается ликвидировать бадахшанскую автономию и выдавливает автохтонное население горного Бадахшана. Население горного Бадахшана сегодня в таком состоянии и настроении, что готово покинуть родные края. Мы не должны допустить этого. Рахмон добивается, возможно, этого, чтобы памирцы покинули горный Бадахшан. А мы знаем, что горный Бадахшан это это сакральное место, в котором, как в одном клубке, собралось очень много ценного. Это экологическая ценность, это резервуар воды для всей Центральной Азии, ледники. Это нескончаемые запасы природных ресурсов. И это редкое этнокультурное лингвистическое сообщество. Они говорят на языке Заратушты. Они говорят на языке, на котором говорили сарматы и аланы на каталонских полях, когда Атила сражался с римскими легионами. Они говорят на этих языках. Это великая ценность, которая досталась Таджикистану, и если бы у нас была ответственная, цивилизованная и умная власть, она бы хранила эту ценность как зеницу ока. Однако мы видим обратное. И я призываю, обращаюсь ко всем людям, которые нас слышат, а также к друзьям и партнерам людоеда Рахмонова, прекратить поддержку Рахмона, прекратить кормить, подкармливать Рахмона и воздействовать на него каким-то образом, в том числе, возможно, арестами его счетов, денег, которые он украл и вывез из Таджикистана, и они находятся на Западе, там, где он хранит эти деньги. Мы просто рискуем потерять Таджикистан. Не только Бадахшан, просто Таджикистана не будет. Спасибо.
Thank you. Sebastian Pio, Research Director of Washington University. To development of the Pamiri region within the Aga Khan development work. And very importantly, as Susan was mentioning, the Aga Khan development network has been under increasing pressure from the government of Tajikistan and from Paymon. Some of these programs were shut down, and there's been much more scrutiny on its money and so on. So my question is, could you give us more details exactly about what's happening with this Agacan development network? And second, to what extent Pamiri populations are aware of this pressure against this foundation and how they're reacting to that?
פונד רוחון למדתי בפאול והאונוח פונד הגחנה был активен в 90-х годах, и тогда еще Рахмонов нуждался в международной международная поддержка. И он очень хорошо принимал Агафана. Но со временем Рахмонов нашел себе, не Рахмонов нашел, а сам Кремль, Путин, начал конфронтацию с Западом и начал как бы свою суверенную демократию и стал как бы защитником этих своих суверенных демократий по всему постсоветскому пространству. И еще кредиты, бесконечные кредиты Китая сделали более уверенным Рахмона, и в этом году уже многие проекты Агафана закрываются или находятся на стадии закрытия.
It's not easy for me to comment on it because I didn't understand. But I guess most of you understood.
My English.
Don't worry,
So
don't worry.
that I couldn't.
It's fine. I'm afraid that we are going to the end of our time slot. I wanted to ask if there is any urgent case to discuss right now. All of us, we are here, and we are here during next days. Even if the situation in the Pamirs is not good at all, not easy, it doesn't mean there's nothing to be done. And we as Minority Rights Group, we can assure you, your friends, that we will be supporting you and looking for best solutions. And if anybody would like to join this network of supporters, you are more than welcome. I'm here. I'm very happy to discuss details.
Thank you for welcoming us.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'm sorry, Muhibi. Thank you, Susanna. Thank you, Steve, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And let's stay in touch.
Thank you, Anna, for good moderation. Yeah, it was very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor, Anna.
Yeah, it was definitely an honor. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you for getting up early.
Teşekkür ederim.